And now we are going to jump into Fluke or for real because some people we need to break down and talk about here. And the first group of people is the Chicago Bears because we saw them come alive for a good chunk of that game on Sunday. They were up 28-7. They were humming. Justin Fields, 28 for 35, 335, and 4 touchdowns. DJ Moore, 8 catches, 131 yards and a touchdown, 27 fantasy points. Khalil Herbert, all the Roshan Johnson truthers were like, yeah, Herbert's losing the job. Nope, 18 carries for 103 yards, 4 catches for 19 yards and a touchdown. There, he got 22 fantasy points. And Cole Kmet, obviously, like I said, has his best fantasy performance of his career in this game. Fluke for real on these Chicago Bears, Wes.
It's really tough for me to totally buy in. I'll be honest. I believed. Let me say this. This stat line that you just gave. This is, I think, what fantasy football players believed would happen for the Bears this season. This is why I was so high on DJ Moore, why I was hooked on a feeling on DJ Moore, why I had Justin Fields, I think, as QB 7 on the season for me. Khalil Herbert, I wasn't that high on, but we did share a statistic in the offseason of what he did when David Montgomery was out. Cole Kmet was someone you and I were talking about the end of last year as being a potential tight end to draft and start and lock him in, and I still can't buy it yet. Yeah. It doesn't feel real. I'm gonna be honest. This is everything I wanted in a week from the Bears offense, and somehow I still don't know if you can just roll them out. I think you have to look at the schedule, and the schedule is not too bad. I'll share this, and then I want to hear what you're feeling because you're not even as high as I am, and I'm kind of out. But they still have the Vikings twice. This is for Justin Fields, at least. Still have the Vikings twice, who have allowed the third most points to quarterbacks. They have the Cardinals, who have allowed the 8th, and they have the Chargers, who have allowed the 1st. But they still have the Browns, who have allowed the fewest. And the final game of the season is against the Falcons, and right now they allow the 21st. It feels week to week for me. What are you feeling, man?
Yeah, I think this game on Sunday proved a lot more about how poor the Broncos defense is versus how good this Bears offense is and figured out. I think obviously the Broncos come back and win that game, which was unbelievable. It was an incredible comeback. But you got 28 points put up on you like early and quick. Like it was like in 2.5 quarters by the Bears, who hadn't been good. I struggle to believe that this is for real and that they've suddenly figured it out versus, the Broncos just are really bad. And if you're in need of maybe a quarterback streamer, you just pick up whoever's playing the Broncos. Which is Zach Wilson next week, by the way. Like it's first bye week of the year. Like who's rolling out Zach Wilson?
If Zach Wilson balls out against the Broncos, then you can stream any QB against the Broncos. Yeah, that's an amazing thought. Stud.
We'll have to see. We'll have to see what happens here. I'm still going to call Fluke on this Bears offense.
There's so much.
Maybe we'll get a picture of it. Maybe we'll get a clearer picture on Thursday night. They play against the Washington Commanders, who just went to overtime with the Eagles. Divisional games are crazy. That was pretty nuts. But
one last thing.
I'm still calling Fluke. Go ahead.
Is it worth keeping Justin Fields and DJ Moore to have them available in case this happens again for any kind of bye weeks and injuries? Or do you take advantage of this week right now and sell high and get someone with a little more trustworthy floor?
If someone's, it would have to be the right deal. But if someone's willing to buy, if someone's buying in on Fields and they're willing to give like if they're willing to give a Anthony Richardson or, if they're maybe not convinced on Tua after 2 poor games and then 2 good games. I mean, if someone's willing to do that sort of deal, I would probably take it. Yeah, I would. I mean, I would definitely take Tua. I'd definitely take Richardson there. But I mean, I don't know if anyone's willing to do that. So it would just have to be contingent on if you found the right trade partner to move them, which is always the situation. But I think you sit with it for now because there is on the off chance that it's like, hey, all we need to do is make Chase Claypool feel unwanted in this offense, and then we figured it out. Like, maybe that was the case. That's what they're doing there. So, well, I mean, I'll say this. I've got Justin Herbert in a handful of my leagues. In leagues where Justin Fields is on the waiver wire, I have put in a claim for him to fill in on this bye week. Okay. I think Fields could be okay on Thursday night, and he could give us a little a piece of this pie again. So we'll have to see. It's gonna be interesting. We'll break down Thursday night in just a little bit, but a lot of things to look at and talk about.
Asking for a friend. I am friend. Appreciate it.
Hi, friend. There you go.
Yeah,
You're welcome. We talked about him already. I just mentioned his quarterback just a little bit ago. Nico Collins, though, 35.8 fantasy points. I mean, I'm in. I'm calling for real here. I'm calling for real on Nico. We already called for real on Tank. I think Tank had a down week. I still think, as what I said, when your quarterback is playing the way CJ Stroud is, I think it comes to a point where you can't be lukewarm about it. Like, CJ Stroud looks legit. Therefore, CJ Stroud's wide receivers are going to be legit in my eyes. That's just, I mean, that's how that plays out. You look at a lot of the offenses here, and that's how that goes. I think that this is legitimate with Nico Collins. I think this is a ceiling game, but I think this is a legit play every week. Nico Collins should be in your lineup if you have him on your team.
Feels like it's a boom or bust for Nico and Tank, and it feels like it's going to alternate. And some weeks will be Nico's, and some weeks will be Tank's. But either way, they were on the waiver, and at the most, they were drafted at the very end of fantasy lineups, and fantasy drafts. So there'll be flex options at most, which is great for your team. So keep pulling them out, see what happens. Maybe they'll continue to get these 30-point games, but Texans offense, what in the
dude,
world?
I can't wait.
Their passing offense is so good.
Yeah, we just said, one of the weeks it'll be Tank and one of the weeks it'll be Nico. And dude, I can't wait for the week that it's both of them. And CJ just throws for 450 and 5, and we're just like, this dude is so good. Like I'm such a big. I might buy a jersey, dude. I'm such a big CJ Stroud fan. It's so awesome to just see him doing so well. I mean, just his journey that he went on, dude. Like the week leading up to the draft, everyone was like, "Yeah, they might not even take a quarterback. They might draft Levis second, like all this stuff, and just all the stuff
and
he went through."
His preseason, don't forget, was pretty bad.
Yeah, dude, he
shows up like
freaking good, dude. That was the Steelers' defense. T.J. Watt couldn't even rattle that dude. Like, what are we doing here? Put some respect on C.J. Stroud. He's freaking great. We're going to talk about him in a little bit. My goodness. Baker Mayfield, 28.94 fantasy points, 25 for 32 for 246 and 3 touchdowns. And he played most of the game without Mike Evans. He did throw an interception, but Baker looks like dude, I can't believe it. Baker looks like a decent fantasy option for if streaming. Maybe he's matchup dependent. Maybe you're a Burrow owner and you're like, yeah, I'm done. I can't figure this out anymore. Like, I'm not willing to roll these dice. Baker looks good. And the Saints defense is a good team. Like, that's a good defense.
Yeah.
And he just put a 250 and 3 on him. And he didn't have Mike Evans. Like, it's freaking I think it's for real, dude. I was thinking back on my words that I made, and I quickly realized I was like, oh man, Mike Evans is like a top 10 receiver right now, and I might have to dye my hair blonde. And then I remembered
Well,
that
it's
it
for
was
both.
I know, that was what I forgot about. I was going, oh man, I think I'm going to dye my hair. And then I remembered. I went back and found the clip, and I was like, okay, wait, it was two top 20. But hey, when Mike Evans went out, Chris Godwin showed that he still got something in him. He had over 100 receiving yards.
Yeah.
He was able to be a top guy. I mean, maybe that's going to show Baker that he can go to both of them. He can funnel targets in those directions, and who knows? Maybe I will be blonde by the end of the year. We'll see what happens.
That'd be amazing. Only thing I'll add to it is, look, you've got Justin Herbert, Deshaun Watson, Geno Smith on a bye, and obviously Baker's on a bye as well. But there are going to be more quarterbacks of the Justin Herbert caliber. And now Geno hasn't done nearly as well as we predicted he might have been. Both had him as our QB10, but we're going to get into bye weeks and injuries coming up, and Baker is a reliable option. I feel like you can depend on him to get 20 points, and that's not too bad in the fantasy world.
Yeah.
For real.
I think it's for real as well. Hey, finally had our a guy that we were a little bit out on show up on Sunday. 27.9 fantasy points for Josh Jacobs, his first game of over 12 fantasy points. 17 carries for 58 yards and a touchdown. Not the most efficient on the ground, but 8 catches for 81 yards. This is something we need to talk about here. Fluke or for real, though, Wes?
I'm going to say fluke. I'm going to say Aiden O'Connell really helps out the fantasy offense for the Raiders. But when Jimmy G's back, I have a bad feeling it's going to nowhere revert.
But to Devontae Adams and Jacoby Myers and Jimmy Garoppolo's back.
Yeah.
It's just how it goes, dude.
Golly. I mean, and 17 carries is such a juicy stat for running backs. It's something that you want to buy into. You love that. But that's such a bad yard per carry. 58 yards off of 17 carries. And yes, he got the touchdown, but like the ball was not moving because of him. The passing game was what succeeded. And if he's not involved in the passing game, then you're not getting 15 points or more than 15 points. So I'm calling fluke. I'm calling fluke on Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, I won't be surprised if this is his best game of the year. I do think that this could be a momentum builder, and maybe Josh McDaniels is going, hey, maybe we need to just make sure we design some more plays maybe in the receiving game. You know, he helped us out there. Whatever. I do think better days are ahead for Josh Jacobs than that 12-point, 10-point floor. Like, I do think he's got some 15, some 20-point games here and there in him, but I won't be surprised if this is his best game of the season. So I'm gonna call fluke on a 28-point game, but I do think there are better days ahead for Josh Jacobs. I think he's talented. I just think he's not. We're seeing that he's not getting all the opportunities he got last year, and that's why you and I were out over 400 opportunities last year. I mean, that is why you and I were out on him, Wes. Is just due to it's not gonna happen again. So Josh Jacobs fluke on this 28-point game. In our eyes, of fourth and troll fantasy. Michael Wilson, third-round rookie wide receiver for the Arizona Cardinals, 26.6 fantasy points, 7 targets, 100% catch rate with 7 catches for 76 yards and 2 touchdowns. Fluke or for real, Wes?
I'm going to call fluke, but I'm going to say it's a glass half full kind of fluke. Like, okay, I won't start you next week, and I won't put a waiver claim in for him, but I will pick him up on Wednesday morning, perhaps, without having to spend my waiver wire priority or some fab, and see if it happens again. But, I mean, Josh Dobbs, very similar to C.J. Stroud. He's wheeling and dealing, and maybe some weeks it's Michael Wilson, and maybe it's Marquise Brown, and maybe it's James Conner's the favorite passing target, but it can be anybody. And Cardinals are a surprise as well. Texas the Cardinals, Super Bowl bound. Super Bowl matchup preview.
Yeah, there you go. I had someone at work to me today go, hey, did you like that NFC Championship preview we got this weekend? And I was like, sorry, what? He was like, Cardinals Niners, baby. I was like, oh, yeah. Okay, there you go. Yeah, NFC Championship bound right there.
Yeah.
You got it.
Lock it in.
I agree with what you're saying here. I think this says more about Josh Dobbs and these Arizona Cardinals receiving options than it does specifically about Michael Wilson. Wes, you and I were in love with Hollywood Brown at the start of the offseason. And as we got closer, we went, oh, this Cardinals offense is going to be bad. I don't feel good about drafting Marquise Brown anymore. And I feel good about rolling Marquise Brown out as a flex in my lineup right now. He's 2 straight weeks of 15-plus fantasy points. Obviously, Michael Wilson has a big game. This Cardinals offense is better than we thought it was going to be. And it's exciting to see. Jonathan Gannon's a lot of fun to rip on, dude. But, he's running an okay team right now. And that's pretty cool to see. So good for them. Yeah, good for them. They're making people sweat, excuse me. Isaiah Pacheco, 24.8 fantasy points, 20 carries. I don't know if that has ever happened for a Kansas City Chiefs running back since Patrick Mahomes has been in the league. But 20 carries for Isaiah Pacheco. Yeah, 20 carries for Isaiah Pacheco, 24.8 fantasy points. Goes for 115 yards and a touchdown, 3 catches for 43 yards. Fluke or for real?
I'm very tempted to say Fluke. I'm very tempted to say it's a fluke, but we knew he was going to be the lead back for Kansas City going into the year. He was drafted around the 5th round, so people had this kind of an expectation in some way. And I also think this stat line is attributed to Patrick Mahomes having a rough outing and they needed to do something else to get down the field. But I won't call it a fluke. I don't think this will happen too many more times where he gets over 20 points. But Isaiah Pacheco is definitely the top dog in the backfield. So I think we get this, and let's just hope that you slot him in in the right weeks. That's my take on Pacheco's performance.
Yeah, you nailed it. There you go. That's exactly what I was thinking there with Isaiah Pacheco. Alvin Kamara, 21.4 fantasy points, 11 carries for 51 yards, nearly 5 yards a carry there. 13 catches on 14 targets for 33 yards there. So the PPR value was booming on Sunday. 21.4 for Alvin Kamara, fluker for real in his first game back.
What an absolute joke stat line.
Right?
I mean, Comedy Central presents Alvin Kamara's PPR game. I'm not even kidding. This makes me upset that PPR exists.
Yeah.
What Kamara did on Sunday makes me bothered that the PPR format is even a thing, because without that, he's got 8 points.
Yeah.
What a complete sham. I mean, I'm so bothered by this. I'm calling Fluke out of complete spite. 14 targets. This is so dumb. It's so dumb.
Yeah.
No. And it's not just because I called him a dud, because by the way, like we woke up at 6:30 a.m. our time to watch the London game. And just, oh my gosh. And it's
Dude,
just like
flip-flopping back and forth.
Yeah,
just
no, Derek Carr's going to start. He's going to defy all odds. And then it's like, oh, no, that's impossible. Jameis Winston's the starter. Oh, no. No, Derek Carr is the starter. And I've got Jameis Winston in a lineup because he didn't want to roll out Burrow. And I was like, oh, I got to sit Winston. Oh, and I can put it back in. Oh, I got to sit him again. I was so mad, and then Kamara does this hot garbage, and I'm so Fluke, cut him, drop him. Don't drop him, but I hate this stat line.
I can see a 21-point game for Alvin Kamara happening. I would say again, maybe frequently this year. I think he's going to be good. I mean, he was running efficiently on a good Bucs run defense. But it's never going to happen this way again. Like, it's you think 21.4, oh, nice. You got, 100 yards and a touchdown for some catches. Nope, just 13 catches for 33 yards. There you go. That's just how that goes.
That's 2.5 yards a catch.
It's ridiculous. It's so bad.
What
so
is
bad.
going on?
A couple of backup running backs here to close it out. Jaleel McLaughlin, 19.4 fantasy points. I'm going to say Fluke. I think it was just a product of Javonte Williams being out. Everyone
And Bears defense is not good.
Yeah. A lot of people in the fantasy community were really high on Javonte this week as a really good start. Obviously, we see the running back who gets work against the Bears. Obviously does well. So that's pretty fluky in my eyes. I will say, if you're a Samaje Perine owner, you're not feeling great about the involvement that Jaleel McLaughlin has in the offense because you think that if Javonte goes out, it's going to be Perine all day, and it wasn't. So
Yeah.
I'm considering, because I have Perine in a few leagues, I'm considering maybe swapping out a Broncos running back here if he's on the waiver wire for me. That's just a random thought I'm having here and voicing out loud for you guys.
I appreciate that. All
Last
the insight
one.
on 4th and Troll.
All the insight. Last one here. Jalen Warren, 11.5 points, 8 carries for 29 yards, 6 catches on 6 targets for 26 yards. Is this the new RB1 for the Steelers?
So I looked at snap count, 49% and 49%. They each had nearly half of the total offensive snaps. And you know what it feels like for me? It just feels like the Steelers are not a good rushing team. That's kind of what I learned. And yeah, Warren is, productive and 29 yards of 8 carries. That's not terrible. And I like the PPR involvement. 6 catches off of 6 targets, 26 yards. He managed to get some kind of relevancy. But I mean, Najee got around 12 points in fantasy as well. So it's not like he stole what Najee did or vice versa. Right. It's too tough to tell, but what I'll say, because I need to give an answer on Fluke for real. What I'll say is for real enough to stash on your bench for late in the season. And also in case you need to drop someone, in case another Devon Achane shows up in the NFL next couple of weeks. I don't mind dropping Warren. I don't want to, but it might be RB1. Imagine that. You and I have Najee Harris as a top 10 running back going into the season, and then by the end of this season, he's not even listed as the starter. Yeah. What happened?
He might get traded towards the deadline. I don't even know. This just feels so off. Feels so different.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just not what we hoped for. We're jumping to the bad side of Fluke for real quick before we just get into the last little bits of the show here. The Bengals, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. Jamar Chase gets 14.3 points because of PPR and just getting kind of the short yardage kind of stuff that was going on. He wasn't excited after the game. I don't know if you saw that quote.
No, I did see that.
They said, what's going on? Were you just not getting open? And he said, I'm open. I'm always freaking open. Yeah, that's how that went. He was not afraid to. And then he apologized. He said, excuse my profanity. Anyways, that is just 14.3. I mean, I think just. And then 4.7 for Joe Burrow. 20 for 30, 165 yards, no touchdowns. They have 3 offensive touchdowns on the year as a team.
Oh.
3 offensive touchdowns in 4 games. Like, what's going on? What is happening? This is for real until proven otherwise.
Yeah.
Like, Joe Burrow shouldn't be started. Jared, good on you for dropping him. Like, my goodness, what the heck?
I want everyone watching to contemplate this and leave it in the comments whether you should just bench Joe Burrow, because this is obviously for real. No one's gonna roll him out. But let's have a conversation here whether you should bench Joe Burrow or if we actually need to drop him. Before you answer, I'm gonna read some stats just to show how bad Joe Burrow is, because unequivocally, Joe Burrow this season is the worst quarterback in the NFL. Statistically, he is the worst, okay? Obviously, in fantasy, he's averaging less than 8 points a game. Remember, there are 32 teams in the NFL. He is 34th in quarterback rating. 34th. He's 32nd in completion percentage. He is 33rd in total net passing yards. He is 34th in yards per attempt. He's tied for last in total passing touchdowns. And he's 34th in passing touchdown percentage. The only categories that he's not 32nd or worse is passing yards, 26th, longest passing play, 27th, and interceptions, tied for 13th, and total completions, tied for 15th. And as you said it too, the Bengals are 32nd. They're the worst offense in the NFL. Bench or drop Joe Burrow?
If you bench him, okay, I'll say bench. But I need like 3 good games in a row out of Joe Burrow on my bench to feel good about putting him back into my starting lineup. So am I holding Joe Burrow through potentially the next 4 weeks of waiver wire ads? I don't think so.
Yeah.
You can drop Joe Burrow. Like, this is bad. This is really bad. And this is not what we thought we were signing up for this year at all. We had Jamar Chase being you had him as your number 1 receiver, Wes. I had him in top 3, top 4 or something like that. But it was just like, what are we missing here? Like, what's going on? Maybe it's the calf. The O-line looks bad. Maybe it's the lack of a run game. Maybe it's freaking mind games because he got paid a freaking boatload of money this year.
Maybe.
I don't know what it is, but this Bengals team is bad. They're not going to make the playoffs. They're not making the playoffs. Let alone I had them being in the Super Bowl. I had them as my Super Bowl team for the AFC this year. I had a Niners Bengals Super Bowl. Maybe I'm halfway right on that, but this is a bad football team. I don't understand what happened. I
have no idea.
Maybe it's the O-line. Maybe it's this injury. I don't know. But this is not good. This is not good. Joe Burrow can be dropped. Jamar Chase, I think even through the poor play of Joe Burrow, he's still, last week, he had a really solid game. This week he gets 14.3. Jamar Chase is still a lineup lock in my eyes because I think he's too talented to be out of your lineup.
Fair.
But you have to very much temper your expectations for what you were hoping for this year out of Jamar Chase when you potentially took him 101. He was going 101 in leagues. This team looks bad.
I feel so good, and my apologies to the troller that I traded Jamar Chase to in our Trollers League and got Tyreek Hill as my replacement. And I told a friend of mine, he has Jamar Chase in a league that I'm in, and he was asking me, what do I do? And I'll just share this, and we'll move on after. I said it's probably best to try to trade Jamar Chase. And I shared that I was able to. It was after week 2 I traded and got Tyreek Hill. So it wasn't like I just did this yesterday or something. But are you going to make playoffs with Jamar Chase on your team? I don't know. I don't know at this rate. Because if you want to hold out for Joe Burrow to finally go on IR and heal from his calf injury and finally kick into gear well enough for you to succeed in the fantasy postseason, I don't think you'll even make playoffs with Jamar Chase. So try to seek a trade, see what happens, but people are buying out. And here on 4th and Troll, friggin' Joe Burrow, you can drop him.
Friggin' Joe Burrow. Listen, that's a good segue here because I'm going to ask, I'm going to list a couple names here, just rapid fire off real quick, because if we're going to try and trade Jamar Chase, you got to try and get some sort of value back for him. Would you trade Jamar Chase for Jalen Waddle, Wes?
Am I receiving Jamar Chase or am I receiving the other player?
You would be sending away Chase in every one of these names I'm going to list off here. Would you trade away Jamar Chase for Jalen Waddle? Straight up.
Plus another. Straight up? No.
So you need something a little more there. Okay, that's something.
I want the wide receiver one.
Sure. Would you trade Jamar Chase for Calvin Ridley?
Calvin Ridley has not done that great.
It's tough.
But I believe the Jaguars will turn it around because we saw them do it last year. Okay, I'll think about that one.
Okay.
I would think about that.
Would you trade Jamar Chase for Jacoby Myers and a piece? Jacoby Myers and a flex piece for Jamar Chase?
I don't think so. I don't think Jacoby Myers
I would do that
enough.
deal.
You would do that deal?
I would do that deal, and I might send that deal out tomorrow potentially. I think I think Jacoby. We made a joke about it, but when Jimmy Garoppolo was playing quarterback for the Raiders, the targets go of one to two places. It goes to Devontae Adams or it goes to Jacoby Myers. It doesn't go to Josh Jacobs. It doesn't go to Austin Hooper.
Yeah.
It doesn't go to Michael Mayer. It doesn't go to Hunter Renfrow. It doesn't go to anybody else. Jacoby Myers has seen 22 targets in 2 games with Jimmy Garoppolo. 11 targets a game with Jimmy Garoppolo right now. 11 targets a game, I'm like, dope. Count me in. I think Jacoby Myers in a piece I would do for Jamar Chase. Let me do one more here. Let's do one more. Would you trade... Yeah, here, this is a good one. Would you trade Jamar Chase straight up for Nico Collins?
That is my favorite. That is my favorite. What a hilarious scenario.
Right.
That's where we're at in this point where I would say, yeah.
I think I would too.
You have to
really
erase the draft pick. You have to just, at this point, just forget what pick you took, Jamar Chase, and you just have to say, I need the better player because nobody can trade for Puka Nacua right now. He is untouchable. He is undroppable. I'm sure he's locked in by some fantasy leagues that you can't drop Puka because they don't want you to make a mistake. Puka is second in receiving yards. If anyone after week 1 would be like, oh, I'll give you Jamar Chase for Puka Nacua, everyone would be like, who is the idiot that traded away Jamar Chase? Right now, it's very likely that I would trade Jamar Chase to acquire Nico Collins.
Yeah. Yeah. Listen, there's some context for you guys. If you're a Jamar Chase owner, maybe send out some of those deals. See if you would do that there. That is definitely something to look at. Fly through here with me. We're going to do a little rapid fire. Jalen Waddle, 8.6 points. He's yet to score 13-plus fantasy points. Fluke for real on this guy because this is a guy we both had top 10. And it's not been what we hoped for. It's I don't know. What do we think?
It's still a fluke because he's boom or bust, and I anticipate that against the Giants he's going to get in the end zone. He's going to have a fantastic day. But it is surprisingly clear that Tyreek Hill is the favorite target. I thought there would still be some kind of Alabama connection between Tua and Waddle, but wow, does Tua love hitting Tyreek Hill. So we're going to have some more down weeks like this. That part is for real. But as far as, like, is he not a good fantasy player? Should you trade him away? No, that's a fluke. He's still going to he'll have a 20-point game very soon. I feel confident in Waddle still.
Yeah, I agree. Jordan Addison, 0 points, just 1 target. Bad day for Kirk Cousins. We liked the matchup against Carolina. We thought it was a fun one. We thought we'd get back on track with Jordan Addison and scoring his deep touchdowns that he did in the first 2 weeks. We did not get there. We only saw 1 target, 0 points. This is fluky for me. It's interesting that they still are involving KJ Osborne, it feels like, more than they should when Jordan Addison is on this team.
Yeah.
But this is a fluke in my eyes. I mean, I think there are going to be plenty of better days ahead for Jordan Addison.
I'm so sorry. We did this live on our last episode between Alvin Kamara, or Jordan Addison who you should start. And I hope you in time switched it, knowing that Derek Carr started. But
I did.
I mean, you did. Okay, you're such a wise.
I did get Alvin Kamara back in there.
player.
I still lost on the week, but it was definitely a closer game than it would have been if I had Addison in there. It was. I flipped it back and forth a couple times actually. After we recorded the last episode, West, I was like, man, what do I do here? And yeah, it was. We still got the points from Kamara, but
Jordan Addison will be fine.
Fluke, yeah, he'll be all right. Deebo Samuel, 0.6 fantasy points, 0 targets for Deebo Samuel on Sunday. 3 carries for 6 yards. This is for real. And all the options are on the field for Brock Purdy. Brandon Ayuk's the dude. Brandon Ayuk is getting the receptions.
Yes.
George Kittle wasn't even really involved. It was Brandon Ayuk and it was Christian McCaffrey. Like it is. I think those are the 2 most reliable guys in this offense. Just as we outlined before the season started, those were the 2 guys in the offense that we wanted.
Look at us
right there, crushed it.
Deebo did well the previous 2 weeks because Ayuk was hurt and out. Look at us. When Ayuk is in, Deebo does nothing.
Yeah,
this is for real.
This is for real. Yeah, Calvin Ridley, 11.6 points, just 2 catches for 38 yards and a touchdown. I think we all got week 1, dude. I don't know what's going on, but it was like, hey, Christian Kirk, you could drop him. He's not involved. And then the last 3 weeks, it's been like, Christian Kirk is Trevor Lawrence's favorite target. This is kind of ridiculous. What's going on here? Calvin Ridley, it's a little disappointing. Man, I am glad I didn't do this, but I was considering trying to sell Puka before Cooper Kupp got back. And I was considering sending an offer of Puka Nacua for Calvin Ridley straight up. And
oh my!
I'm glad I didn't.
Yeah, thank you.
I was gonna buy the dip on Calvin Ridley, but it's just if he doesn't score a touchdown here, it's like another 4-point game. Like this is just disappointing for Calvin Ridley.
Yeah. Something will change eventually. That's my take, but
yeah,
for now, he's barely a flex option.
Yeah, it's tough for sure. Dallas Goedert has yet to score 10 points in fantasy football this year, just 4.5 points. This is disappointing too. Eagles offense felt like it was swinging and it was doing well. It was it looked like their best game offensively after their previous best game was the Monday night game against Tampa. Philly looked good. Offense looked like it was humming, and Dallas Goedert wasn't involved. Just 4 targets. I mean, maybe it's the scheme. Maybe it's Shane Steichen not being there anymore, but Dallas Goedert's been disappointing, and there might be some better streaming options out there for Dallas Goedert. I mean, I think you probably have to play him just because it's Dallas Goedert and it's the Eagles offense, but it's been disappointing.
He's not
for sure.
getting 1,000 yards like he said he would.
No,
he's
not.
Way.
Yeah, no way.
No way at all. It's also, I think, the involvement of DeAndre Swift and his success, too.
Yeah, they've been running the ball really well.
For real.
For real. Yeah. Ramondre Stevenson, 6 points in a tough matchup against Dallas. I'm still calling Fluke on this, and I think he's going to have another. I think he's having another bad game next week. I don't remember who he's playing. I need to double check this. Hang on, because I heard somebody say this today. Yeah, he's got a tough matchup next week against New Orleans, and then that's when you go trade for him, because after that it's like Vegas, Buffalo, Miami, Washington, and Indianapolis, and then a bye week. So it's like, hey. Wow. Buy the dip after next week when it's probably going to be another bad game. I have Ramondre. I'm not starting him next week. But things are going to be okay. I know that there was reports of Ezekiel Elliott was going to get starting reps for the Patriots on Sunday, and he got like 6 carries. It's still Ramondre's job. Yeah. He still has everything there. It was just a hard matchup. So that's a fluke in my eyes. And then Jacoby Myers. Last guy here, 5.3 fantasy points. I'm saying Fluke. I'm riding with Jacoby, dude. When Jimmy G is the quarterback, I mean, we already said it a few times, but Jimmy G is the quarterback. Jacoby Myers gets targets. And even though Devontae Adams is on this team, Jacoby Myers is still making an impact. He's still doing well for fantasy. I had Jacoby Myers in my lineup. And then when it was ruled that Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't going to play, that was when I put Zay Flowers in. Zay Flowers does a few points better than Jacoby Myers does. But I was ready to go Jacoby Myers over Zay Flowers this week. So that's where I'm at with Jacoby Myers. This is a fluke.
Garoppolo with Myers is a great connection. And yes, Adams is still going to be heavily involved, but do not think week 1 was us getting got like maybe Calvin Ridley did. Yeah, that's a fluke. Myers will be good, and I saw people dropping him in some of the leagues that I was in, so he might even be available still.
He's worth grabbing for sure if he's out there.